Alright, so I want to talk about Doomsday Clock. I want to do a little review on this book because I just reread it recently, and this review's a long time coming because it's just never really a good time to talk about Jeff Johns in the Snyder Cut fandom. But fuck it, I want to talk about the movie. Book. It's almost like a movie. It's almost the same pace of a movie, but still. Yes, I have the two hardcovers. As you can see, the two hardcovers. I will be putting a little video flipping through the book so you can see the panels and whatnot. But I just want to give my thoughts about this book because I think it's a really good story. There's not much wrong with the book. This book was originally pitched as the sequel to Watchmen. And I gotta say that I don't think it's a straight up sequel to Watchmen. I really think it's more or less like taking the same characters and putting them in a new world, a new story. Because a sequel would mean that you're continuing right where the last story left off in the same world. And if you read this book, you'll see that they quickly switch over to the DC universe. And you're not really in the Watchmen universe that much. So in that respect, I don't think I can name it a sequel. That's why it's called straight up Doomsday Clock and not Watchmen something. The whole point of this book is to connect the Watchmen world to the DC universe. Because before, Watchmen was a self-contained story by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. And there really wasn't meant to be anything else. No prequels, no sequels. And of course, DC made before Watchmen, a few years ago, actually a while ago now, but that series had a bunch of good writers on it, and there's actually a few good books there, and it also got a lot of shit because they were trying to add on to the Watchmen story, right? So that's kind of like the same deal here. This book got some shit because they were trying to, bridge Watchmen to the DC universe. And all things considered, Jeff Johns does a great job actually bringing in these characters to our world. And if you remember Watchmen, the story ends and Dr. Manhattan leaves. And that is the catalyst for Doomsday Clock, because where Dr. Manhattan went was the DC universe. And in this book, they call it the metaverse because the DC universe that Dr. Manhattan went to is the central universe, right? It is the central DC universe that every DC universe, all the multiverses are affected by. That's why it's called the metaverse. And this is entirely like a Jeff Johns thing. I've never really heard of like the metaverse thing before this book. But reading this book, you get introduced to a couple new characters, the Mime and Marionette. I think that's her name. And both really good characters, awesome abilities. They're kind of villainous, and they're in the Watchmen universe. And Ozymandias has devised a plan to go get Dr. Manhattan and bring him back to the Watchmen universe because Ozymandias' plan did not work. The world found out that he was behind the giant squid monster at the end of Watchmen, and now the world is fallen into chaos, and there's nuclear bombs about to go off. So Ozymandias is like, we gotta go find Dr. Manhattan. He's in this other universe. And he brings along these villains because these are the villains that Dr. Manhattan spared. So Ozzy is hoping that Dr. Manhattan will spare him again and just slow down enough for Ozzy to convince him to come back to the Watchmen universe. And that's the catalyst. That's what starts the whole story. You have a new Rorschach in here. His name, I want to say it's Ronnie, or he's the son of the psychiatrist that was in the original Watchmen book, the black psychiatrist that does the examination of Rorschach. And as you remember in Watchmen, Rorschach kind of makes the psychiatrist go crazy, and this his son also has gone crazy because he saw the giant squid monster at the end of the first Watchmen book. And of course, anybody that didn't die from the monster went insane just by looking at it. It's kind of like a Lovecraftian monster, like Cthulhu. If you look at it, you just go crazy. And that's what happened to this new Rorschach. and Ozymandias is keeping the truth from him because Ozymandias knows that his dad went crazy because of Rorschach, but he's keeping that from the new Rorschach. And later on, you find out that this new Rorschach was in a mental asylum with the Mothman, which was like an awesome callback. Lots of amazing callbacks to the Watchmen book, and they bring back a lot of characters that really weren't in the original Watchmen book, but they were like talked about. But you actually get to see them in Jeff Johns' Doomsday Clock here. And this is the first part, the first book, and this book right here is all set up. It's really all set up, and nothing really takes off until you get to part 2 right here. And this part 2 is my favorite part. It's the most action-packed, and that's where the story really starts snowballing. It really starts snowballing from there. In the second part, Superman has to deal with a worldwide emergency. In Russia, Firestorm accidentally kills like a mob of people. He accidentally just turns them all to glass, and Superman sides with Firestorm because Superman knows that Firestorm did it by accident and he's trying to protect him. And then the world turns against Superman, and it's interesting because Jeff Johns in this book makes the point that most of the superheroes are from America, and the rest of the world is creating a conspiracy that America has been inventing the superheroes, which is a really cool idea, and it makes a lot of sense. And then you start to see that like China has made their own Superman, and Russia is making superpowered beings and stuff like that. And that's what's starting the conflict here in this DC universe here. And so all that's going on really. And Dr. Manhattan's kind of just watching it all happen because Dr. Manhattan is conflicted because he just sees the end of his life, and the last moments of his life that he could see is Superman charging at him with his red eyes and everything. That's the last thing Dr. Manhattan can see. And so Dr. Manhattan's just waiting for that moment to see what happens next because he doesn't know what's going to happen next. But of course, Dr. Manhattan is wrong, which is funny because like it's the second time we see Dr. Manhattan is wrong about something. Like the original time is in the first Alan Moore Watchmen book. That's when you see that Dr. Manhattan was wrong. Like he trusted Ozzy, and that was the wrong decision. And he does the same thing in Doomsday Clock, where he thinks Superman is either going to destroy the universe or he's going to destroy himself, and Dr. Manhattan's wrong about that. In fact, Superman is the one to convince Dr. Manhattan that there's a third way, that it's not just about destroying the universe or fighting to the death. And it inspires Dr. Manhattan to regain his humanity. And that's something that is just amazing because the whole point of the Watchmen book is that Dr. Manhattan doesn't have any humanity anymore. That's why he gets so disconnected and he can't see the inevitable disaster end to Watchmen that's going to happen, and he can do nothing to stop it. So that was one of the most inspiring parts of the book. There's a great moment near the end where Superman does, charge at Dr. Manhattan, and it's all just to hit the dude that's right behind Dr. Manhattan. So Dr. Manhattan was wrong the whole time. And then the next page is all black, and there's black panels, which I thought was really cool. Because you think for a second, oh my god, is the universe over? And then you flip, and it's just like creation coming back, right? And what's really cool about this book is that Jeff Johns explains every Superman origin. Every Superman origin is the catalyst for the DC universe. Yeah, it's really tough to explain. You gotta read the book to understand what I'm saying. But even all the way back to the 1938 Superman, he uses that as a catalyst. Every time Superman has an origin, that's when the DC universe starts. You know what I'm saying? So multiple times the DC universe has started and ended and started and ended. It's really cool. It's really cool. And this book got a lot of shit when it was coming out because it was delayed multiple times. I think it took almost 20 months to put out 12 issues, because altogether Like, this book is 6 issues, this book is 6 issues, that's 12 issues. It took them almost 2 years to put it out. So that's why it got a lot of shit. People were really bitching about how long it was taking, but it was all worth it because the last 6 books really are well thought out, and it's really good. Like, the first book is really just all set up, and it's just getting you into the story. But the second book is where it takes off, and that's where I really started to like the book a lot. Gary Frank does the artwork for this, and Gary Frank is a longtime collaborator at DC, an artist at DC. He's one of my favorites. Like, the images are just beautiful. I would put him above Jim Lee, honestly. If we were just being frank here, Gary Frank, I would put him above Jim Lee. As far as like artwork that I enjoy the most, there's something about the realism he does with the artwork. The way he draws fabric is also like very good. Like, you gotta hand it to him. He's very, very good with that. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend you read it, especially if you like Watchmen and you like the characters of Watchmen. This gives you a nice little callback to those characters, but it's not a straight up sequel. I think that's the mistake they made with this book. People really thought this was going to be a straight up sequel. It's not. It's really just a bridge. It's something to connect the universes. It's not this continuation of the Watchmen story. They could still do a sequel to Watchmen, honestly. This book ends, and you could still kind of do a sequel to Watchmen. So, you know, I would love to see the story about how the world finds out about Adrian Veidt's plan. And, you know, what's going on with Night Owl and stuff like that. Because Night Owl and Laurie, they're not really in this book. You see glimpses of them at the end. They actually pop up at the end because Dr. Manhattan, he creates a child. And he gives him to Night Owl and Laurie. And Dr. Manhattan gives them a child. So, you know, lots of good stuff in this book. The new creations that Jeff Johns added to the Watchmen world, Mime and Marionette, they're really cool. And when they interact with Joker, it's like some of the best stuff. It's some of the best stuff because Joker's like really impressed by how crazy they are, and it's just hysterical. And Comedian is in the book too. I'm looking at the cover. Yeah, I remember Comedian's in the book, and there's a moment where like the story is coming to an end, and they send him back to the Watchmen universe, and he's like, "Oh shit!" Because the last thing he like did in the Watchmen universe is fall out the window. So he's sent back to that moment because that's the moment where they grabbed him from, and they send him back there, and he just falls back, and he falls to his death. I thought that was a little humorous and a nice way to tie it all together here. But yeah, the panel grid is very similar to the Watchmen book too, even though I don't think it's as mathematical as what Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons did, because when you look at their panel grids for the original Watchmen book, it's mirroring. Like, you could split the book in half, and you could just keep closing the pages, and all the panels line up. It's pretty cool. And I don't think this book does that. I would have to, like, you know, get the actual, like, complete edition of Doomsday Clock, and I would have to see. I don't think it does that, though. At least I wasn't seeing that. But still, love the artwork. I really enjoyed the story. I love how it ties everything together, bringing the Watchmen, you know, characters into the DC universe. But because the book took so long to write, it kind of missed its opportunity, because before this book came out, you had books like DC Rebirth that teased the Watchmen universe, and then you had The Flash and the Batman and the Button. That book also was like a prelude to Doomsday Clock. But since Doomsday Clock since it took so long to make, it missed its chance to really continue a story in the DC universe. So it kind of just wraps up in this Doomsday Clock book, and yeah, they kind of don't really do much with it in the DC universe, because by the time the last book in Doomsday Clock came out, Rebirth is kind of done. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, people are moving on from the DC Rebirth, and now the DC universe is kind of just a mess. There's not really much going on, but still, as far as Doomsday Clock goes, I really enjoyed the book. I love what Jeff Johns did with it. I love the artwork by Gary Frank. It's a beautiful book. If you love artwork, you'll love this book. It's a lot of beautiful panels, and I just love all the little DC Easter eggs, and all the lore that's in the book. I really like all that, especially with Alan Scott Green Lantern. I think that's like some of the cool stuff in the book. But anyway, yeah. Is this Jeff Johns' best work? I don't know. Probably not. It's tough to beat his Green Lantern run for me. Clearly. Tough to beat that run. His Flash run was also incredible. But still, this is going to be considered one of the best books by Jeff Johns, and everybody should probably read it. I would give it a 9 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Maybe an 8.5 out of 10. That range. 4 out of 5 stars, I think, is a fair score too. And yeah, that's it for now. Comment below, let me know what you think. What did you think of Doomsday Clock? Did you like the story? I like the story a lot. I had no problem rereading it. And that's when the second part gets going, it does not stop. You know what I'm saying? You just keep going till you're done reading it. I like that. And I hope we see the Mime and Marionette. I hope they bring those characters back in the future. I feel like they would go really good with like Harley Quinn and Joker. Like they would pair up really nicely with those characters. But anyway, that's it for now. Comment below, let me know what you think, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.